starting. You know, I'll tell them, you know, obviously it's gonna be a lie, but you know, they're getting on me because I'm not stocking the fucking coolers and freezers right. Now when I tell them, then put fucking signs out saying, hey, stock the coolers this way, otherwise you're getting written up. That place is getting so fucking old and annoying. You know, I understand they're trying to get, you know, fucking points across. And I get it. You know, I almost am to the fucking point that you know, I want to tell them to just go ahead and fucking fire me, because then they'll be dealing, you know, getting rid of a fucking headache then for both me and you. She's like, what do you mean for you? I said, because you know, I'm gonna tell her, I'm fucking killing myself here for this fucking place. And she's gonna be like, well, what the fuck you mean you're killing yourself? You don't do shit for this place anyway. I said, I've done more than enough for this fucking place. You know, and you guys see, I don't give a fuck. Fucking Amazon. You know, if I didn't give a fuck, I'd let that place burn down. You know, that's what I should tell her. You know, that's what I should tell her. I'm throwing it in her fucking face, and I'm gonna be like, if I didn't give a shit, I'd let this fucking place burn when I was on fire. You know, when Jim and Barb would come to look at it, and I'd throw it in their face, and I'd be like, I fucking told you so. And then leave. And if they're like, oh, come back here, I'm like, what? You gonna fire me? Because I'll do you the fucking favor before, you know, from sitting right here. You know, I'll tell them I quit. You're like, well, you know, we want you to explain why you said I told you so. I've been saying for fucking years to you, to Lily, to Jamie, to fucking John, to Tony, everybody that was above me, I'm like, hey, this place doesn't fucking start on fire if this shit doesn't get fixed. And you're like, oh, it'll be fine. I know ghetto sketch, you know, sketchy ghetto ass bullshit when I fucking see it. You know, but being in fucking burning buildings or being on fire underneath a fucking truck isn't fun. Ask me how I know. I've almost burnt 2 fucking houses down because of my stupidity. And I would have took, you know, with one house, I would have took a, you know, no, both houses. Would have took a fucking vehicle with it. And I was sitting underneath one. And so that's why I say, ask me how I fucking know. Because when I lit my leg on fire, I don't think I've told this story, so if I have, just let me know. So, fuck. Is the so it's the winter before, you know, not to, you know, get demonetized or fucking canceled because of this shit. So it's the winter before COVID hit. So it's winter 2019 going into 2020. Week before Christmas. And at this around the same time, Dad bought his 72-inch toolbox, and Dad's back started giving him problems. And we were also working on the Avalanche. So we're working on the Avalanche. Dad bought the toolbox. Back started giving him problems, but not in that order. So it's started working on the Avalanche. Back started giving Dad problems. On top of driving Grandpa's truck. Then he goes and buys this 72-inch toolbox. That's 72 inches wide by 22 inches deep. You know, from front to back. And so I'm like, okay, you know, I had a day off from work. You know, obviously at this point I was at A&W. You know, I had the day off of work, and I was planning on doing 3-4 hours of work. You know, or I was planning on doing like 6 or 8 hours, or maybe 2 days of work in about, I don't know, 4 hours. And I'm sitting on the driver's side of the truck, you know, in the garage at Grandma's. Now, mind you, I'm working on Dad's Avalanche. You know, and I'm wearing sweats, you know, because that's what I'm comfortable in, because I normally hate wearing jeans. I normally hate wearing jeans. So that's why whenever I'm riding, you know, between the end of winter and the start, I'm always wearing, you know, gym shorts and sweatpants. It's because of that reason. So I'm sitting on the floor in the garage, you know, and I had my piece of shit coat that I had gotten from a buddy of mine, you know, that didn't fit him. You know, and I threw it in my lap, so I'm like, okay, I'm being somewhat decently smart about this, so, you know, trying to protect myself from lighting myself on fire here. And I'm sitting towards the back of the truck, and I'm welding on the truck. And you know, finishing welding a patch panel in. You know, I'm working on a piece, you know, because Grandpa was old school. He never bought the fucking, you know, replacement panels. You know, he never liked to. You know, so he always made his own panels. So then I'm working on getting the rest of the one panel in. And I flip my welding hood up, and I'm like, you know, I'm looking at it. Okay, I need to weld here, here, and here yet. And I look down, I'm like, oh shit, fucking leg's on fire. You know, I'm like, I yell over Grandpa's bed and no more metal for me to put in. He's like, I'm like, hey, my fucking leg's on fire. You know, I'm 19 going on 20 at this point. He's like, what do you mean your leg's on fire? I said, my fucking leg is on fire. He's like, oh, you know, and I was using my, you know, my pant leg was on fire. And I was using my actual leg to put it out. Because I use my hands for work, so. You know, so then he's like, would you put it out? I was like, yeah, I burnt up the back of my leg pretty good. He's like, well, then go up by grandma and have her clean it up and tell her what happened and have her clean it up. I'm like, okay. You know, I told her, I said, hey, we're done for the day. She's like, why? What do you mean? Because she was sitting at the dining room table. She's like, what do you mean you're done already for the day? You've only been down there for like an hour. I said, I know. And I said, here's what happened. And I don't want you to freak out. And I understand if you get mad, but I don't want you freaking out. She's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, just let me explain. And you'll understand why I don't want you freaking out. I was welding, sitting on the floor underneath Dad's truck, you know, the Avalanche. You guys seen it way in the past, you know. We'll go back to the video of me riding with my buddy Kylie, Keegan, his buddy Kenny, when we're in Site 5 at Bay Shore.